Welcome back to This Week in Godforge, episode 10. I always forget to mention this at the beginning, so I'll do it here. There's a link / code down below, HLOC10, if you want to get 10% off your Godforge / Fateless gear. First order only, I believe. I don't get any kickback from that, so use it as you wish. Also, if you like what I'm doing here, like and subscribe. I've been trying to get one new subscriber a week. Somebody actually was nice enough to do that last week, so thank you very much. Let's get into it. All right, here we go. We got Magaru. I'm not sure if that's how you say it, but she's from the Slavic mythology, or she is from Slavic mythology. The wing protector of warriors. So getting kind of, Valkyrie type vibes, but obviously Slavic instead. Obviously, it will be a melee unit, but the wing protector of warriors makes me think either some type of defense up buff or something like that. So, sort of a support character that can do some damage is what I would guess. Probably going to be a cool winged attack like we've seen. Or I guess we haven't seen that yet, have we? I'm trying to remember. I know there's an Egyptian god I posted last week. It was from Instagram. I don't remember if they had wings or not, but obviously there'll probably be some type of fly up and damage skill. Got this chalice here, and I forgot to mention, this faction. I still am not sure how you say that. Vyraj, Vira maybe. I always get it wrong. I always have to find Simon saying it to figure it out. So this is her golden skull-shaped cup, in reference to mythology. It's kind of her final act to give people a drink from this, or to the fallen. So possibly a reviver. That's kind of the vibes I'm getting to here. You see the skull on it. She's a protector. The mythology says final act to give a drink. So I'm guessing she'll okay damage, maybe a defense up, and possibly a reviver, which honestly I haven't really got the feel from too many of these characters. So it's good to see a character that I think will be a reviver. Okay, trying to keep these short, kind of change the format up a little bit, not make these videos as long. So let's get to not Tuesday's video, but actually a podcast on Pocket Size Gamer that came out with the founders of Fateless. So let's take a look at that. All right, this is a interview that Sham, Simon, and Dan did with Pocket Gamers. They're in London. Um, so it starts off with kind of talking about how the HH network and Fateless were built / founded. That's nothing new if you've listened to some of these old interviews or even some of my videos where I talked about it a bit. So we'll kind of skip over that. Then they kind of go into why people are drawn to Simon and the team, and it's kind of interesting. They talk about this later, but really I think too it's the culture that they're building, and they talk about how it's sort of one of transparency, and they want to be really close as a team. I will say too, I'm glad they never used the words "we're a family," because as somebody who's had normal jobs for the past 20 plus years, if a job ever tells you we're family, like run. They're just trying to exploit you, okay? Because they're gonna ask you to do something, like they're gonna exploit you, like because they're trying to get an emotional response out of you, something sympathetic. Where in reality, your family would never do something like that to you. They would treat you better. But anyways, that's a side point. But I think part of it they don't really go into too much. They do keep talking about how Simon has this K factor, which for those of you who don't know, it's in various different aspects of STEM when they're sort of developing these equations to simplify calculations for things. Sometimes they can't get it exactly right, so there's just a K factor, which is kind of a fudge factor that they figured out if they put in, they get the right result. So that's kind of why, at least I'm aware of why that term is used, the K factor. It's just this little extra you got to put in to get the right result. So I think that's what they're saying with Simon. And related to that, I think that's kind of why the team is the way there is, because Simon set the tone and it's growing from him. And you can see Sham is, Also a very similar person in the sense that they're both very genuine people, is what I would say. And then after that, they kind of talked about the strategy for launch and how they differ. They don't have the money that these big studios do. So Dan was talking about how they have this sort of built-in audience or group that really wants to get involved and sort of promote the project as a whole. So that'll give them a leg up over the competition as opposed to, just going out and hiring some big streamer, or they even use celebrity here as an example, to try and promote their game. They have more of an organic, type of guerrilla marketing campaign, I guess you could say, going on right now. And then later, when it gets closer to launch, they will use more targeted advertising, is the sense I got. Then they went on and talked about how, part of what they're doing is to support content creators. And as somebody who started brand new, I mean, you can go check out my first video. It is not great. And I'm not saying my videos are great now, but there has been, an improvement, I would say, as opposed to the first one. And they're building the game and the community with mind to help people. And I'll say I made I think it was literally my first video. I got a message from the team, inviting me in. I don't think I had any subscribers. I made one video and they're like, come on in. And they've been, great ever since. And they talk, or rather, Dan talked about how they have calls where they kind of give us tips and stuff, which is definitely true. I don't know how much I really contributed to those because I honestly feel so green that I'm just kind of absorbing it all. And I will say, he talks about their Discord for the company, but also the Discord for the content creators. Susie is in there daily helping us on top of, making her own content. So she's always available. And Simon's in there, I'd say, on a pretty regular basis. So he's clearly reading it on a regular basis and chimes in when he knows something, even if people don't ask him stuff directly. And then Dan will pop in if you ping him. So the whole team as a whole is just very helpful to new content creators. So, I want to give a little bit of a thanks there. One thing that was interesting too is they said something about rev share. I don't even know how that would work or what they would do for it. So that's interesting. My goal was never really to do this as a living. I would never rule it out, but really I just wanted to make good content and, make a few bucks where I can essentially play the game for free, buy a few packs or something. That was my goal. So we'll see how it goes when it launches, but that's all I intended. She did ask them too, because Simon said something about other people approaching them, even though their game's not out yet. Oh, can you help us put our game out? So possibly someday becoming a publisher besides just a game developer. So we'll have to wait and see. Okay, and then kind of after that, they talked about, which I already kind of hinted at. I said, it's probably based on Simon, how the culture was built. And the way they described it, it seems pretty organic. Simon says, oh, we're talking to so and so, and they were involved in all these games. And he's like, well, I loved those games growing up, or I played them. So it seems like I said, because of the type of person Simon is, and he does talk about how they're very good at networking with people, they're getting other genuine, passionate people, not just people who are in it for the money, which isn't necessarily always a bad thing. Sometimes guns for hire can be very good for your team if you just want to, a quick, I don't know, whatever they're doing, they're good at this particular skill. It can be very useful, which honestly sounds kind of like what Mike was, the guy who's doing the cinematic, who I think Simon said is now their chief marketer. He kind of came in as a hired gun. They vibed so well, and he was like, hey, I want to stick around. And they basically found a way for him to stick around. So again, just great culture there. Oh, related to that, then they talk about how daily they have a Zoom call with cameras on so you can see people and kind of see the reactions. And he says, they kind of live in their Discord and they're just a very tight knit group, which you can definitely see in the product we've seen this far. I'll say how they describe as a small budget. I can't say necessarily if that's true or not. And that's not to say they're making up. I just don't know. I would assume they're telling the truth if you look at obviously we all come from Polarium, or a lot of us come from Raid, which is owned by Polarium, which I forget who owns them now, but obviously a huge budget. So I know in comparison it's small to that, and they're seem like it will be a comparable quality game, if not better, because it was developed later. But again, we'll have to wait and see. Then after that, a little bit, they kind of talked about the HH network itself and how that was built and how that kind of supports them now and how they can use a similar type model for Godforge, or maybe other people can kind of copy their model. And I didn't know this. I knew they had content creators that worked for them and did like articles and stuff. But it sounds like from what Dan was saying, they actually hire them. And he said they don't take any of their YouTube revenue, but they will also make content for hellhades.com. And they also is the HH Gaming Network. I don't know if they make stuff for that, but obviously I know some people like Nubs, for example, has his own YouTube channel for Raid, and I think Honkai. I forget. I don't play Honkai. I don't watch the other channels, so I can't remember. But then he obviously writes articles for HH Gaming Network, and according to Dan, that's a completely separate salary. He was saying they give them this salary so it takes some of the pressure off of them to make more content just to get views, to get money, because when they kind of have that support there, they can make better content because they don't have to rush it out to get views or be first to get views, you know. They can kind of sit back and make better content, which will ultimately lead to a bigger audience. And then he feels like will draw to their website, so HH Gaming or hellhades.com, and taking that approach to Godforge. He didn't say specifically what they will do. Sounds like they want to use a similar type model in some fashion to kind of help promote Godforge, but we'll have to wait and see. I'd say those are kind of the big takeaways and some of my inferences from this. All right, here we are on Tuesday's video. So this is a breakdown of the cutscene we got about a week ago. I definitely guessed a few things right, but a lot of things I did get wrong. So let's take a look at that. So the first thing we see is this hero, which I guessed as Nefertiti. Spoiler alert, in a few seconds, that was wrong. Her name is Aya. He actually shows it, so let me show you that. Yeah, here we go. We see her. And it should have been obvious. I'll go to the scene in a second, but she is Samash's wife and is associated with Dawn, so sort of a sun god as well. But yeah, should have been obvious who it was if I really stopped to think about it and just thought of it as a new hero instead of maybe somebody we already knew. Yeah, here you go. You see Shamash and Aya fighting, who I thought was I don't even remember who I said it was, but it was the wrong giant. That's actually Gargamel, I think is how he said it. It's a Cornish slash British giant, said to be the son of demons and have the strength of 20 men. So that's who that is. That's also confirmed now, I guess. So I think he might have said something about him before, but I don't remember. But either way, Aya is confirmed as a new character we now know is in the game. So this part here, he does show later that was Beset, and he doesn't say it, but you can read it in some of the when he's scrolling through kind of their board, their process. That is Kamzat. That was one of my guesses, so that is one I did get correct. Okay, so we had this person here who we didn't know who that was, and then later is shown more turned, still fighting Thor. That is actually the god they talked about a few weeks ago on the Thursday podcast, Apuch, Ahpuch. So that guess was wrong a few weeks ago when I guessed Apu, which was like some type of god of rainfall or rain, I don't remember. So that was wrong as well. Then I kind of wanted to play through this overall shot. Uh, Obviously, we knew it was kind of the sense of an overall battle, but I didn't get this sense that it was kind of all in one place. I thought it was kind of spread out throughout the realms. So it's kind of interesting to see this perspective. This might be Anubis right there, if you can see my mouse kind of in the mid screen to the right. I don't know who that is, but let's just play through it. Actually, I'll just start playing here. So the rest of the video, besides the little reveals I just showed, he kind of talks about their concept. Um, of the overall cutscene, how it changed over time, and kind of where they got inspiration. I didn't think about this, but he talked about, he said Diablo, but I believe it's very similar to, he actually shows it Diablo Immortal. I think that's the cutscene he's showing. But the interesting part too about this is he said this is a teaser. So it doesn't seem like what we saw will actually be anywhere in game. They were just kind of using this as a proof of concept for what they wanted in the game. And obviously, we saw that other little snippet last week of what will be part of the reveal trailer, which will be on March 19th. So, less than a week when this comes out, we'll be seeing that. And I'll probably do a breakdown on that on its own and then just talk about it a little bit in my weekly summary video. Okay, so that's about it for this video. Some good reveals. Um, let's get to Thursday's podcast. All right, a bit of a surprise interview here with Simon, aka Hell Hades, on Skratch's new Godforge channel. I'm sure if you play Raid, you're familiar with Skratch, and also watching this and seeing how quickly Skratch is getting, views and subscribers made me realize some mistakes in my first video. What I should have done is, cold reached out to one of the biggest creators in the space and had him on my first video. And then, my channel would have done better from the start. It was so obvious. I don't know why I didn't think of that. So kudos to Skratch for having that in his head ahead of time. Obviously, I'm joking. Love Skratch. All right, but let's get into it. So, one of the big things is he reiterated 100 playable on beta. That's been said before. We did know that. Another thing is for the beta, essentially anything that can power up the heroes Simon wants to have in the beta. So that's good to know as well. All right, let's get to the kind of reveal stuff. Okay, so here's some character reveals. I'll let Simon pronounce it because my pronunciation is never great.
I wanted to show you because we're starting to get some.
This looks cool as well, yeah.
Really cool kind of like visuals. These are 3D models, just not in game yet. Is Nami. We've got Shinigami, and this is probably my favorite actually. Oda.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is gonna be a fan's favorite for sure.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant.
I love Oda.
Again, so from the concept to the sort of full 3D design, they're really just coming through at such a high quality level. It's brilliant.
Okay, that was a new art reveal or character reveals, however you want to look at it. They did add something as far as the camera works, so let's take a look at that. Okay, so you'll see he clicks up here and changes to a few different views. That's it. I mean, that's a small minor thing, but was probably a lot of work, and I'm loving this view the most probably. The other one was pretty good too, the little. Actually, I like this one the best. I changed my mind. Let me know down below what you guys think of the 3 different camera angles. The first, the original we've been seeing, this one, or this one. I like the second one the best. All right, next he actually shows off some ultimate, so let's take a look at that. Okay, the first ultimate we're going to see is Guang Yu's over here. We've seen that before, but, looks pretty cool. Kind of summons little versions of his spear that strike down, then dissolve or evaporate. All right, we'll just skip to the next stage in this fight because he does Ra's skill, but it shows blue for part of it, which he explains happens every time you do it the first time in game. But then we'll see Ra's, Ramses, and Lady Zox's ultimates. Okay, now we're going to see the other 3 ultimates, and I'm pretty sure that's the first time we've seen these in game. So yeah, here we see Ra's, looks like a double hitter. Next is Ramses, I believe, his little like chain move. It looks pretty cool. Actually, you know what? I think we have seen that before, but either way, cool to see again. And then now we'll see Lady Zox. I wonder if hers applies a bleed because you'll see it's red. Yeah, it looks like it, right? That looks like a bleed right there. And some other kind of debuff. So pretty cool. Okay, next We see a lot of in-game models for the first time and a couple reveals that I think we've guessed at as a community and some confirmation. So let's take a look at that. All right, let's take a look at these character models. Isis looking pretty sweet or juicy there, Simon would say. Fisher King looking great. I'm looking forward to getting him. I want to build Avalon the most. It's probably my favorite faction so far. Odin, seen that before, but looking great, right? Brunhild, same. Seen that. Osiris. Set, I'm not sure. That might be the first time we've seen Set. And I'm going to pause here. Confirmation that that is Gilgamesh's portrait right there. And it's hard to see, but you'll see this axe over here that was actually in that snippet of the cutscene, or the end of the cutscene the other week, where somebody was swinging it and destroying some type of pillar that had a blue light on top of it. I said maybe that's the Godforge, and someone was destroying that to keep from getting more gods into their realm on this ongoing war. It didn't look like Gilgamesh in the video because his beard did not have this kind of jewelry at the end of it. So I don't know who it is. I think it's supposed to represent the player, but I'm not sure. But let's take a look at some more. See who else we got. Pandora, we've seen her before. Oh, I didn't notice her little treasure chest there, Pandora's box. That's cool. Wonder how that'll be used in game as a weapon, but yeah, that's going to be pretty cool, right? Beowulf, seen that before. I don't think he's further along than, yeah, I can see some face stuff there. Maybe that's new. Vidar, I think this is the first time we've seen him click on Vidar. That dude's looking pretty awesome, right? Druid, that's definitely the first time we've seen that. Skady, first time we've seen that, I believe. Nubian Warrior, we've seen that. Okay, just wanted to come back and take a look at Druid for a second because it's the first time we've seen the Druid. You know, the leaves on the staff, a defender. Interesting, okay. So not a offensive class, a defensive class. Obviously, throughout many RPGs, we've seen, you know, different takes, either a sort of defensive or offensive version of druids. So in this case, defensive, you know, probably going to be a heal of some sort. But I'm just loving this model. I mean, look at this. This is a uncommon. Tell by the green portrait, right? Look at the amount of detail in just an uncommon, like the beard hair and the gauntlets. Oh, and the tattoos, man. The more I look, the more I see, the crazier this gets. Okay, let's get on to the other ones. I'm going to spend all day looking at these. Also, this video is definitely going to be longer than 20 minutes, so I'm breaking that promise. But you can blame Skratch for that, you know. Him with the great interview. Okay, we see the composite bowman. That's the first time we've seen this character, I believe. Berserker. We might have seen that, but that's crazy too, right? This is great looking. What is he, a rare? Where's he clicked? I can't tell where he's clicked. I think this is a rare. But either way, right? That's a great looking model. Desert Raider. I think that's the first time we've seen that. Knight, we've seen that before. Again, great looking for an uncommon. Who else? Tristan. So I believe this is the first time we've had confirmation that that's Tristan. I think Ragewood might have guessed that it was, or somebody else. I can't remember, but confirmation that that's Tristan. Some other Avalon confirmations here in a minute. Icarus, I think that's the first time we've seen the model, but we knew that was Icarus's portrait. Hippolyta, again, I'm not sure if I've seen saying that, but we knew that was her portrait as well. Azlog, we've seen that, I believe, or maybe the portrait, I can't remember. Achilles, looking great. All right, here's the confirmation. Mordred, I think that's how you say it. This is Arthur's son. And I'm going to be honest, when I was looking at this, I did not realize as much of this was the helm as I thought. I thought this was kind of an orc character. But yeah, this is like Arthur's evil son for a quick kind of summary. Possibly we'll make more videos on these later, but we'll see. Musashi, we've seen that before. many times. Looking great, though. Interesting, too, if you look here. Let's see if he rotates it a little more. No, he doesn't. But the fur looks very similar to the Berserker. Used in a different way, but you can kind of see how they're reusing assets. Ran, seen that before. Looking, yeah, looking awesome. Crazy detail as always with all these characters. Percival, okay. We knew he was in the game, but I don't think we knew that was his portrait. Yeah, looking like a faithful knight. Perfect name for him, right? I'm loving this weapon over here. The same symbol like you saw on the druid's necklace right there. So again, that almost looks like a chalice at top on the top, right? Oh, and on his chest. Crazy. Okay. I'm loving all the tied together imagery. Emoptet. We've seen in game, but I don't know if we've seen him on the character screen like this. So great to see his staff. Hopefully they zoom back out again. I can't remember. Okay. It's very brief, but yeah, I wanted to stop and look at his staff here with these, one or multiple gems. Hard to tell, but very cool looking. And the scrolls on his back. All right, let's keep going. Sphinx, we've seen that before. They got the eyes fixed, it looks like. All right, King Arthur. I don't remember, but if you look at the sword, they clearly got the sword fixed, right? Looks different than it did before. Okay, now we see Dracula. I'm pretty sure we've seen this before, but just like how slowly he spins it and all the detail we could see, like in the gauntlets and then the cape there in the chest. I just wanted to show this at the end. He's looking ungodly, right? Like a destroyer of men and gods. So we'll have to see how good he is, but a legendary chaos brawler is probably going to be a pretty badass character. Like, look at the kind of, I don't know, almost like veins through the gauntlets, right? All right, let's get to Thursday's podcast. All right, just a quick add on here for something I forgot that I noticed while I was editing for that last interview with Skratch. That the reliquaries where you can farm the weapons will rotate seasonally, so it won't always be the same, legendary weapon like Excalibur that you get from those reliquaries. That's how I'm understanding what Simon is saying. All right, now to the Thursday podcast. All right, this week we have another in-house episode of the Fateless podcast with Brad hosting as always. Sham on here, Dan, and I guess the kind of pseudo guest is Chloe, even though she's part of the Fateless team. It was pretty interesting to see her on here. I'll try to link to her channel down below. They talk about that a little bit. I'm aware of her playing Marvel Rivals. That's what I've been seeing on her channel. I don't know what else she might cover on there. She did say it used to be a makeup channel, so that's funny that she converted it. But related to being funny, in our creator chat, she's very some pretty good little jabs sometimes in the chat that make me laugh. So glad to see her on here. Anyways, so the first half of the podcast, they kind of talk about everyone's likes in terms of how they use social media and what they use. And it's funny, they're all part of the same team, all into games, and they all consume it in different ways, it seems. And that's sort of the first half. And then they kind of start asking Chloe more direct questions, like where does she get ideas? Like what are her goals when she's doing postings of that nature? And she does talk about briefly kind of her 4 pillars or her secret sauce. I'm not going to give them away here. So if you want to know those, you're going to have to go check it out yourself. It's about halfway in. She talks about, I don't want to say struggles, but balance of keeping the audience you have and getting new people. And they relate that sort of, how they all consume it. They say that their audience right now for Godforge / Fateless is very close to the HH Gaming Network audience. So they kind of have a format. They know how to engage with those people and keep them engaged, right? But to go outside of that, they have to use other means that they don't usually use a lot, like more short format stuff. Dan specifically remembers short format is very good to get your content out, but maybe isn't the best at keeping people engaged. And he said, there's kind of a dance you have to do there as well to figure out how do you get them to look and then how do you keep them engaged. And related to that, something interesting I didn't know is Dan, I think it was Dan or maybe it was Chloe, I don't remember. One of them said actually their biggest platform for engagement is Facebook. So that tells you something about the audience that they have for this game right now. And I'm in that age range, but it's funny, I don't use Facebook at all anymore. I did when it came out. Actually, I'm old enough that it was MySpace for me before that. Then I did migrate to Facebook. Honestly, I don't really use it. I never did a ton anyways. And part of, that engagement Chloe talks about is the different algorithms and how they kind of work. She doesn't touch on the specifics a bunch, but does talk about, how it can be very time consuming to sort of manage and make sure you're getting pushed through those algorithms correctly. Uh, and then they talked about too how many, I think Dan called it touches, which I guess would be how many people are looking. I'm not familiar with that term. And they couldn't really figure that out, but Chloe did say in the last 7 days they've had 78 posts on all their different platforms. So that made me kind of honestly, realize I'm not looking at everything they're posting. I'm using mostly YouTube and Discord. I do follow them on Reddit. I forget to check it a lot, so I don't know if there's extra stuff on there I'm missing. I don't even have Instagram, but sometimes they'll post, so I'll check that as well. Then they have what's it called, X. I don't really check there either. So that made me just think, maybe what I'm missing in terms of what I could be doing for my channel. But I also don't really care about social media that much myself, so I don't engage in it that much. I have a X/Blue Sky, and I honestly just post a link to my videos. I don't think I have any followers on there. I'm not really concerned about that. Maybe I should be. Maybe it would help my channel grow if I tried to engage there, but it's just not something I'm into. I'm sure I'll use it eventually when the game is out, maybe. But I kind of always envision this channel as more of an interaction as opposed to having fans someday. Like, I don't stream either, but if I were to stream, to be more almost to engage with people who watch my videos. And that's another related thing Dan says. I think he uses the example he'd rather have 300 engaged followers as opposed to 300,000 subscribers on YouTube who aren't engaged. I can definitely understand that sentiment. So that's kind of where my channel I want to be at. We'll see what happens in the future, And then related to that, they kind of talk about Dan has a channel where he talks about doing YouTube, but not YouTube in the sense of being a gamer, just sort of marketing, brand, things of that nature. Is from what I've seen. I do follow it. I haven't watched it in a while. He might even have another channel that he did almost a vlog on. I have watched that. I don't know if it's the same channel or not. I have multiple channels I follow. And apparently he also has a newsletter that has to deal with some of this stuff. Brad talked about, he read the recent one, kind of how to get your story into your YouTube videos to get people engaged. So I actually went and subscribed because that's kind of interesting to me because I want to use YouTube as the main platform and maybe everything else is a backup or not at all. So I'll try to link to his stuff down below, as Chloe's as well. And like I said, she's can be very funny in our creator chat. So I'd say go check her out. I'm not sure if she streams because I've only ever watched her stuff on YouTube, so I can't say. But if she has Twitch, go follow her on there as well. Then they end the podcast with, of course, asking who your favorite gods, myths, legends are, things of that nature. They both mention individuals have already been seen in the game. For Dan, it was Athena. He said he really loved her shield. That's what kind of grabbed him. And he said there is other models he likes, but was very specific not to mention them. So we'll have to wait and see. Maybe in a later podcast we'll see him again, and he'll tell us, what those ones were at this time. But obviously he has kind of the inside scoop that we don't have yet. Chloe mentioned she likes Orpheus and Eurydice. I think I'm saying those right. I don't think we've seen models for either of those. We just know they are in the game. Brad did say he thought Simon showed the model for one of them, but I can't recall. That's about it for this week. Overall, the first half is kind of what social media they use and how they use it, and the second half is kind of how Fateless is going to use it in the future and how Chloe engages with all that. And that's it for the podcast. All right, that was it for this week. I will link to all the stuff down below that I said I would link to, Chloe's channel and Dan's channel. Also, I figured out why I was confused about Dan's channel. He has 2 channels that literally have the same name. So thanks for that, Dan. That wasn't confusing when I was trying to remember that. But yeah, and then I'll link to the general Fateless YouTube page as always. And thanks for watching. Oh, also, I haven't really decided what I was going to do in terms of if I'm going to start doing more daily type videos or just keep up with the weekly. So still just weekly for now. But now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.